Hi folks, and welcome back. And while we are in the MiG-19, as in some of my previous videos, we aren't on contention Cold War for a change. Instead, we are on HeatBlur Cold War. And yep, it's still around, still seems to be doing okay. So contention had a pretty rough blue stack when I wanted to play, so rather than log on and become a chew toy for blue 4, I checked out HeatBlur, and surprisingly there were a few people on, about 4 blue and 2 red if I remember correctly. So Franco and I jumped on there and had a really fun couple of sorties, as you're about to see. After takeoff, I'm up and looking for an A4 that's nearby according to EWR. I'm on my own at this point, as Franco had to restart his DCS because of a crash, so he was still starting his plane up on the ground. The A4 is very low according to EWR, literally skimming the treetops like 100 feet, which makes him extremely hard to spot. Eventually, with a little help from my missile seeker, I managed to spot him. Unfortunately, I mess up the approach and attack, ending up with an overshoot as he's quite slow, probably because he still has his stores. I opt to go up to keep some of my energy while turning, as opposed to pulling the stick as hard as I can to try to stay with him. This is definitely the right move from a BFM perspective, but the challenge is the A4 is very small, green colored, and hence disappears into the forest. All I can do at this point is try to predict his path and fly to where I think he will be based on his last turn. The missile seeker tone confirms to me that I've guessed right, even though I can't see him, and Fox 2 and splash A4. Nice. I'm not going to lie, that last kill was pretty satisfying because this guy was an absolute pain to spot. He was flying right at treetop level, which is bloody annoying. We fought him later on as well, and he was even dipping into the forest without crashing at that point, which was even more frustrating. Now I'm on my way east to support Franco, who's engaged with the Vigan, and judging by smoke and explosions, I'm going in the right direction. I spot the Vigan, I get a brief lock, but it's a very low probability shot, so I hold fire and start to turn with the Vigan. I try a few gunshots but miss, and now I'm turning in behind him. Vigans can turn pretty hard, but don't realize that the MiG-19 is just as good and can turn just as hard behind them. In fact, will retain better energy because of the thrust to weight ratio. I've gone up to keep my energy rather than to bleed it all off by turning, and this is setting me up nicely for a shot. He's getting quite slow and I'm pulling him into my HUD, and I take a few shots and I hit him instantly, wrecking him. Not gonna lie, again, pretty satisfying gun kill, but turns out there was even better to come in this session. Franco and I are looking for another A4 now, and again he's very low, also treetop level, making him very hard to spot. Finally, I managed to get tally and a missile lock, so I fire a Fox 2 thinking there's a decent chance of connecting, but he tightens his turn and trashes the missile. He then pulls hard through his turn, but I stay in lag pursuit for now. I've got Franco with me, so I feel the situation is under control and I want to save my energy for now. Eventually I managed to pull him into the HUD, and it looks like things are lining up nicely. I start firing and I get hits at a decent range, and again, very happy with the gun read there, so pretty cool kill all around. We then do a quick landing to rearm, refuel, and when we're up again, we're looking for yet another A4, and yes, surprise surprise, he's very low again. We managed to get tally on him and start maneuvering for a firing solution. I managed to get a lock and fire a missile, but it's trashed pretty much immediately. I'm then trying to get another lock, but he starts to flare, and there's no point firing if he's flaring. The R3 is immediately going to get trashed, and the seeker cone is quite small, so it's quite hard to get a lock sometimes, especially against a non-afterburning aircraft like the A4, which is why you saw me struggling to get a lock there. I got tone a few times, but this is a very low probability shot. All it needs is for him to tighten his turn and he'll trash a missile, so I decide to be patient and wait for a better opportunity. So what you'll see is every time the A4 tightens his turn, I go up a little bit rather than following him, because I want to basically keep my energy. It's 2v1, there's no urgency to the situation, so it's better to be patient, wait for him to make a mistake or run out of energy, rather than trying to go for an easy kill and maybe making a mistake. You can hear that I'm constantly working the throttles, throttling down to avoid overshooting, because the main goal is to stay behind him, not overshoot, and just wait for a good opportunity to come up. I get tone again and decide to go for a shot this time because I think he's quite slow, and sure enough the missile connects this time, so splash A4. A little later Franco has left. I'm on my own. I'm looking for an F4 on EWR. He's burning in pretty hard at me, and around 8 nautical miles I get tally on him and decide to turn and beam him to avoid a Sparrow shot. The 19 can go fast enough to negate a Sparrow flood shot above 600 knots, but it takes a long time to accelerate above 500 knots, so beaming is usually safer. Sure enough, as we merge, I can see a Sparrow shot, so he must have tried a flood mode shot. As I'm beaming him, he passes behind me, and I decide to reverse and force a one circle because I want to get him as slow as possible. I go up and over the top to avoid an overshoot, and he decides to come up as well, and we end up in a kind of vertical scissors. In fact, we're almost neutral here, which isn't too bad considering I started defensive, but unfortunately I pulled too hard trying to follow him up, and I end up stalling, and the MiG-19 you can see is basically tumbling at this point. I'm trying to keep tally on him and try to recover the plane, which is, believe me, no easy task at all. Luckily, the next EWR update shows that he went cold, so he also used the opportunity to extend away, and I immediately decide to head for the deck as it will build up speed and it protects me from a Sparrow shot as well. That sonic boom worried me though, because it means he's very fast and probably closer than I thought, so I need to be wary. And the next EWR update shows that he's hot on me, so I immediately brake left because there might already be a missile out on me. Luckily I spot him, looks like there's no missile, and I turn into him. Again I decide to reverse and try to force a one circle, but this time I try to avoid going up to conserve more energy. He goes up, so I stay low under him and I pull hard. Again, we're pretty neutral and in a rolling scissors, but it looks like he's getting slow and there may be a good opportunity here, so I'm keep working the angle, keep pulling hard. This is exactly what I want. I want him to get slow, and that's where the F4 really struggles. Not that the MiG-19 is that much better, but you can see I'm slowly starting to work in behind him. There may be an opportunity here. I switch to guns. It looks like he's going to cross, and bang, took his tail off. That was probably the most satisfying kill of the lot, primarily because I really had to work at it. He was a pretty good F4 driver. He did his best to keep his energy up in the early stages. Just what did for him was he kind of got sucked into that slow scissors with me, and that's probably why I managed to get the better of him in that situation. I think these fights were all a great illustration of why I still like to jump on HeatBlur Cold War sometimes. While it's nice that contention is popular, once the numbers get past 30 or so, the side imbalance gets past like 1.5 to 1, then the chances of getting one-on-one encounters or small 2v2 encounters like you saw here are very rare. It becomes one or two massive furballs where you're most likely to get third party rather than defeated by the opponent that you're actually trying to fight. Also, sorties like this make me really appreciate the MiG-19. I do hope that regardless of what happens with the Razbam situation, that ED can keep the 19 going in the future, especially since it's probably the simplest of the Razbam modules. But just in case, I'm going to take every opportunity to fly this awesome plane when I can, and if you have it in your hangar, I really encourage you to do the same. Hope you enjoyed this vid, and see you in the next one.